Absolutely. I sort of think a little bit better on my feet. Some of you know this story. It's a rivalry between two sets of cousins, the sons of two brothers, for the throne. And to contain that rivalry, the kingdom is divided. The better half goes to the bad guys, the Kauravas, including the capital Hastinapur, and the worse half goes to the good ones, the Pandavas, the good ones and the bad ones. It's not very clear because the bad ones do good things and the good ones do bad things. The Pandavas, the good persons, they are hardworking, diligent, bright, like MIT students, and they clear the forest, they build the capital, they have Arjuna, the greatest warrior, on their side, they expand their territories, they make diplomatic alliances, and suddenly they have become the most powerful kingdom on the earth. And so the eldest brother, Yudhishthir, is told that now he can have a Rajasuya ceremony, which is consecrating him as emperor. So to this ceremony come hundreds of kings who bringing tribute, nobles, and also invited is Duryodhana, who is the eldest brother cousin on the other side. And when he sees all this wealth pouring in and the power of the Pandavas, he gets envious. All accompanying him is his uncle, Shakuni, who says, "My lord, you grow sick and pale. What's the matter?" And Duryodhan says, "What man of metal will stand to see his neighbor prosper and himself decline?" Now, in that line, he has caught, this is an exact translation from the Sanskrit, he has caught the awful nature of envy. You'll all understand, you can forgive jealousy. Jealousy is my fear that my friend may run away with my wife. So you'll sympathize with me. But envy, just because my friend is doing well, my neighbor is doing well, my brother is doing well, that I should feel bad inside. That is envy. And it comes in very early in life. At the age of 5, I remember, there was another boy in our neighborhood, and he had a red toy engine, and I hated him for it. And when he was not looking one day, I broke it. They did a survey at Harvard with a graduating class of 1987. And in that survey, they asked, would you rather earn $100,000 a year or $50,000? Everybody said $100,000. But then they put a condition that if you're earning $100,000, your friends will be earning $200,000. But if you earn $50,000, your friends will be earning $25,000. And 83% switched their answer, which tells you that compensation is really relative. And this problem today we face with CEO compensation is a problem not of what they need or deserve, it's a problem of envy. When I grew up, I worked for Procter & Gamble, and our factory was next to the Philips factory. Philips, the lighting electronics company. And that factory had been on strike for a whole year. And one day, I heard that the head of the union leader of the Philips factory tell his workers that I don't care if we ever open this factory as long as this Dutch factory manager goes down. And that's how I understood that if the sin of capitalism is greed, then the sin of socialism is envy. We've had a celebrated fight between two brothers of India's most famous family, the Ambanis. And people call it greed. But I said no. In fact, it is Anil's envy for Mukesh. He wants the world to believe he's as good as his brother. And at one point, envy, it shows you that envy has a good side because it made Anil very competitive and he built great companies like Reliance Capital. But until this recent patch up, I, as one of the 4 million shareholders of Reliance, was very worried that actually Anil, what he wanted to do was to bring Mukesh down rather than rise himself. And yeah, just to finish the point, that I did not understand why in the 1930s, Raj, decent middle-class Germans did the most awful things, were swayed by Hitler to do the most awful things to the Jews. Until I read that more than 50% of the professionals of Berlin and Vienna were Jews when the population was less than 5% of Jews. And 65% of the doctors of Berlin were Jews. So you see how I go about my strategy.
Oh, absolutely. How envy. You mentioned the Ambanis, and one of the things I get from your book, the difficulty of being good, is it is tough today to do the right thing and the moral thing and the honest thing. If you look at Dhirubhai Ambani, he built a fabulous empire, but the means he employed, do they justify the ends? You also give an example of Modi, who built the India Cricket League, the IPL, which is an incredible story. It's a $4 billion industry, and he built it from scratch. And so you've got to be amazed by his entrepreneurial ability and his execution, and building something like the NFL in India or like the NBA in India. But at the same time, if you read about him and the way he got there was not quite kosher. So how do you sort of reconcile the ends and the means? Which are more important?
Well, the Mahabharata discusses this. Mahabharata discusses this, and I was just going to come to that. But first, I want to come back now to the story. And Shakuni now says to Duryodhan, look, these Pandavas have grown too powerful. And we can't take them on in a straight fight. So we'll have to use strategy. And what does he mean by strategy? He says that, look, I'm the greatest dice player in the world. And Yudhishthir is the worst. But he's addicted to gambling. And moreover, you cannot lose if I play because I cheat. But nobody knows how I do it. So, they have a gambling match, and sure enough, Yudhishthir shows up, and he gambles everything. He gambles his kingdom,
his wife,
his brothers, himself, and his wife. And so, at this point, to humiliate the Pandavas. This is a patriarchal society. You humiliate the men through their women. they drag in the queen, Draupadi. But Draupadi is no weeping queen. And Draupadi asks a question. She asks, who did my husband lose first? Himself or me? And they immediately know this is a trap they've fallen into. Because it is true, he had gambled her first. I mean himself first. And because he had gambled himself first, by the rules, he was and he had lost, he was no longer competent to gamble for her. Because he had no property. He had nothing to gamble. But the